Good day, everyone. This is your teacher, Ms. Mars, and on today's video lecture, I am going to talk to you a different topic, and I believe this topic is really necessary for me to discuss. Specifically, the project that I will let you do for the final term is a lesson plan. So I am going to discuss what is lesson plan, and perhaps I would also discuss few approaches and how you would do or use it when you create a lesson plan and you follow that specific approach. So I will be sharing that to you guys. So I know you all already. Thus, without further ado, let's begin. Allow me this time to share my screen. So I believe you can see now my screen. And let's try to take a look at really what is lesson plan or lesson planning. So lesson planning, it is one of really the things that pre-service teachers should know and should learn about because of course it's part of our responsibility of our job as teachers. So lesson planning. Now, what is a lesson plan? A lesson plan, it is actually an indispensable tool. And if we are going to take a look at where we can compare or where we can think of a similar thing, no, with talking about lesson plan is that it would be similar to a blueprint. If you are an engineer or an architect, of course you have your blueprint, and that is for those professionals. For teachers like us, of course, ours is a lesson plan. It is the purpose of lesson plan is, of course, to improve the teaching, to improvement of teaching to the teachers and learning of the pupils. So, as a teacher, there is always a need for us to create lesson plan or to plan our lesson prior to our implementation or prior to discussing or teaching the lesson. So there is a need for us to plan it. Okay. So that's why it's a lesson plan. It is an indispensable tool. Okay. And a lesson plan, it is a statement of achievement to be realized and the specific means by which these are to be attained as a result of activities under the guidance of the teacher. So obviously we are going to lay or to write in our lesson plan our targets, the competencies, and then we will realize that at the end of the session, we are going to achieve all those competencies that we have. And these are to be attained as a result of the activities that we let our students do. So all the objectives that we have will be attained in the end of the session. And how could they do that? How could they achieve that? Is through the activities that we let them do. And of course, that will be under the guidance of the teacher. So it depends on the lesson plan. If a lesson plan, it's a daily lesson plan. So we would expect that at the end of the session, the competencies will be achieved. But if it is a weekly lesson plan, so of course, at the end of the week, you would be able to make sure you achieve the objectives or the competencies that you have in your lesson plan. Now, why is a lesson plan important? A pupil's educational growth actually depends on the selection of the subject matter, but oftentimes subject matter is already given. Specifically, if you are teaching in the government or even in the private, like there is already a specific subject and then you have a course book that you follow. And aside from that, we also have curriculum guides that we follow. So, of course, more or less the subject matter or the topics that we are going to discuss is already given. And then the activities, okay, because the subject matter and then the activities, as a teacher, you decide on the activities. As far as I know, even if you have the curriculum guides, it doesn't really mean that all the activities there, you can tweak it. Okay, you can modify it, you can change it based on the needs, based on the context. So there are things that you can do to tweak or to modify the activities. And then we also have the experiences and methods adapted to the needs of the students, their interests, their abilities, and level of maturity. So these are the things that we are going to consider when we create a lesson plan. So lesson plan is very important because it is our guide. And in the lesson plan, everything is written there, na subject matter, our competencies are also there, no? The activities, the experiences, and the methods, all these things, we can see it in the lesson plan. And making a lesson plan includes foreseeing what is likely to happen and choosing experiences that will change children for the better. So making a lesson plan, we kind of have an idea already on what's going to happen. And we also choose the experiences that, of course, worthwhile and something that would provide really something good for the children, so they can improve not only cognitively but at the same time emotionally, mentally, or that means cognitive and behavioral, their behavioral aspect. And another thing is, of course, their affective side, right? Because if we are going to create a lesson plan, we have objectives, the cognitive, we have the affective, and we have the psychomotor. And all these, we call them the behavioral objectives. Now, the lesson plan, it is important because it will serve as your guide and your reminder. You cannot just go out there, go to the classroom, and then teach whatever you like to teach. No, it does not work that way. You go out there, you teach the children, you teach your pupils, and then you use your LP to guide you. And of course, it prevents waste of time that usually accompanies an organized or haphazard teaching. So because you have the lesson plan, you are not wasting your time because you know exactly where to go. You know exactly where to bring the students. Suppose you have no lesson plan, it would be really difficult to steer the wheel, no, for that particular session because you will be like wandering around and you are the captain. Inside the classroom, teachers are the captains. And inside the classroom, we are the boss. Not really like we have to be bossy to our students, but of course, we are the one who will bring them to their destination. We are the drivers inside the classroom. If you as a teacher, you have no lesson plan, you don't know what to do, you just get inside the classroom and you have no plan at all, it is wasting your students or your pupils' time, and they don't deserve it because one of the things that is in the code of ethics for teachers is, of course, we provide quality education. And at the same time, if you are a full-fledged professional teacher, you also take an oath on that you are there to provide a quality education for your learners. And we have to make sure that we, of course, always remember that principle or always remember what what is our responsibility. And it prevents wandering away from the subject matter by making the teacher conscious of what he has accomplished for the day. So students won't wonder, okay? Teachers won't wonder, and the teacher um really knows so well what he or she expects to be accomplished for the day. So it's like knowing really what should be accomplished. And the teacher here really knows, what he or she is doing. And kung kay ba kasi imong gibuhat and you also know where you're heading, of course, you have this kind of goal or objectives nga you have to make sure you really achieve it. And the objectives that I am referring to, of course, are the objectives that we wrote in the LP. The cognitive, psychomotor, and the affective. And then it gives a feeling of security, especially if you are novice or you're a beginning teacher, you're a fresh graduate, the more that you need a lesson plan because you have not had any teaching encounters with these pupils. It's your first time handling this subject. So in terms of experience, you probably has no experience yet. So well, as years pass by and you keep on teaching the same subject, of course you would build mastery, no? Pero it doesn't mean that you won't be using, or you won't be using your lesson plan. Of course, you have to make sure that your lesson plan is really, there. You use it as your guide. So it gives a feeling of security, especially to teachers who are new, okay, to beginning teachers. And the teacher becomes more effective in as much as a good preparation ensures good instruction. So the teacher is more effective if mas nindot ang iyang preparation. And it's not just about in teaching man class, even whatever endeavors we have. If we are really prepared to do something, diba, ahead of time we prepared, obviously it would come out really great. The same with teaching. If we prepared for it, so of course it would really, the result would be really good. That is our that is actually our role. That is what we are supposed to do. We have to make sure we're prepared, and at the same time we only give quality to our students. And principals and supervisors, our academics head, they can trace what the teacher has taught and what the class also has covered for the day, for the week, for the entire month, for the entire quarter. And in our case, in college, in the university, we don't make daily lesson plan, but we create a semester syllabus. So in the syllabus, we planned everything first for the entire semester. So if you are going to take a look at our syllabus, you would know these are the topics that should be discussed. Though lesson planning is just an addendum, it's actually not in the syllabus, but I believe there is a need for me to discuss it because your final project is a lesson plan, and lesson plan is a material. So I'm not going to let you create a course book because, of course, you have no time for that. The time is very limited, very short. And I believe because you guys will soon become student teachers, so it's also important that you will be creating a lesson plan as your project. Now, what are the parts of a lesson plan? So the basic parts of the lesson plan are the following. First, we start with the objectives. So in the objectives, we make sure we provide a target that we can attain, no, for the given time frame that we have. So we give direction to the class discussion, and we also call for outcomes to expect. So what are the competencies? What are the outcomes right after the session? So those are the things. In the objectives, we have to make sure it's smart, it is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bounded. And at the same time, you have to consider the three aspects, no, areas. We have the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. I was telling this one last session with the other section that if we are going to say um cognitive, affective, and psychomotor, we have to make sure we definitely have one objective per per domain, no? It should not be like two are cognitive and then one is psychomotor. There is no affective. You have to make sure there is one cognitive, one affective, and one psychomotor. Like it's the minimum. And somebody asked me too, like, what is really like, if a mentor would require you to have at least two. Okay, that means if at least two, that means six objectives. And somebody also, another instructor would require just three. Well, there is no such term as what is really the standard. Well, minimum, non-negotiable yun nga dapat na kay one objective for each domain. But kung pila na ka buok objectives nimo per domain, ang minimum na one. Kung naa kay duha, each of the domain, it's okay, it's fine. As long as your objectives, you can achieve it by the end of the session. Okay? So, dili pwedeng daghan na kay kag objectives, but then it is not even reflected in the procedure. You did not even let your students do something, because if that is the case, what will happen is it's not going to be attained. And remember the characteristics of an objective. So an objective should be smart. It should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time bounded. So those are the things. And we have to make sure it's really smart. It's not like dili siya smart, dili siya attainable, no, within the given amount of time that you have. So suppose you are asked to have six, it's okay as long as within the time frame you can really achieve that. Kung you will create a daily lesson plan and that is only good for an hour, you know, you implement or you teach the lesson for an hour, basically it's going to be okay siya, pero you have to really make sure ha nga imong ma-achieve. Kay the more objectives that you have, the more activities, of course, you will let the students do. Students will be engaged to more activities. Pero kung weekly ang imuhang lesson plan, so of course, I would expect na daghan-daghan kang objectives because how many session per week, right? Pero pag daily siya and you only meet the students an hour or 1 hour, you have to really make sure. I believe three objectives would be enough for that session. One for your cognitive, one for your affective, and one for your psychomotor. If you go beyond that, it's fine as long as you can achieve it by the end of the session. But never gyud nga duha imo objective kay wala kay affective or else wala kay psychomotor. It should be minimum of three. One cognitive, one affective, and one psychomotor. And that's what you guys will be doing. When you create your LP, you have to make sure it's really minimum of three. So you have to call for pupils' behavior that denotes specific action. So that is the objective. And the second part of a lesson plan is your subject matter. So this part of the lesson plan actually shows the topic, lesson, or content to be covered, or the content to be covered. It also includes the sources of the lesson and your references. So here, you're going to write the topic, you include the topic, the contents that you guys will cover. And of course, don't forget your sources and your references too. Now, the materials, it's the third. The materials will, you have to discuss here or you enumerate here the necessary teaching aids that you will be using, no? And then through it, experiences can be provided that will develop understanding. So we will look into teaching aids, devices such as the maps, the graphs, the flashcards. You can make use of that. You can make use of maps. You can make use of graphs. You can make use of flashcards, realia too, photographs, recorders, diagrams, illustrations, globe, and posters. So these are some of the teaching aids that you can use. No, it's part of your material. And then the procedure. Procedure is the next, but for the procedure, it actually depends on the method that you are going to use, no? So it doesn't mean that we only have one steps or one uniform procedure that we are going to follow. Pero if atong tan-awon sa gid siya, maura gid siya by concept, di ba? Pero ang label lang and at the same time ang steps, like it could be nga more sa kaninga procedure, more of how do I say this? More exposure sa mga students that they will be in a group activity or more opportunity for them to speak or to communicate. It depends on your approach or your method that you use. So that is the different steps of the method used should be seen in the procedure. So for example, safe ang method nga imong gamito, no? So your procedure should start with the letter A, stimulating activity. B is we have the actual, and then F is follow up, and then we go with evaluation because E is evaluation. And that is the fifth. Evaluation is the fifth. And it is important in checking whether learning has occurred or not. And then we have here two types of evaluation. We do have the formative, and then we have also the summative. But for the formative class, always remember, students here are only asked to do something for drills, or it's not meant for grading. You will never grade the student's result or test scores if it is a formative assessment or if it is a formative evaluation. Now, as again, scores should not be used to grade the learners, since this is the time where they are still trying to absorb and trying to process. And here you would know if they really understand the topic or not. And you may decide if you will reteach it or you're going to provide them supplementary thing or whatever strategy you will use. No, I remember when I was in high school, somehow kaning math, it's really a bit difficult, no, especially if you are taking advanced classes in math. And then because there are really classmates or students in the class where really needs help. So what my teacher did that time is that there are this group of students who excel well, or who basically are performing well, and those students who also need help is partnered with the well performing students. Okay, and then so there is now the body system, and what happened is, of course, it's the responsibility of the student who performs better to teach the his body, or his or her body classmate who needs help, or who needs more intervention, no? And then in the exam, so both of you will take the exam for sure. You won't be taking it as one, no? So lahi mong seats when you take it, but your scores will be added and divided into two. So kung ikaw, if you are performing well, you will really be obliged to really share what you knew and teach your body classmate. Is it because if you want do that, what will happen is, of course, gamay to siya score. Ikadako kay nawa ka wala nimo siya gitudluan, naninguha lang kag imuha. So inig-add sa inyong score mo, eventually gamay gihapon ang imuhang points because gamay ang hawa siya kapasar, ikapasar ka. So the value of sharing can really be seen in this strategy, and it's really good. It's very effective. And then summative evaluation class, it's something that we use to test the mastery of our learners, and here it is meant for grading. So bali with a formative, kanang mga formative nimo na polish na, kahibaw na kag-asa dapita, kinulang ang students. So muna to na kay strategy. For example, nag-body system ka, or you do reteach and things like that. So summative, so you give an exam, and here it is meant for grading, and you have to record it. Now, the last part of the lesson plan is assignment. It tells what the pupil will do, which will result in educative experience. It can be in a form of a lesson to be studied. It can be a project to be accomplished, a theme to be written, or, you know, some script that they are going to do, and some analysis paper that they are going to comply. An exercise to be answered. It can also be an interview to be accomplished. Means of developing good study habits and independent work. And then we do have here prerequisites to lesson planning. So the prerequisites to lesson planning, of course, first you should have a knowledge of the subject matter. You should know the children, your pupils, you should know them, so that you have an idea what are their needs, what are their interests and the likes. Because if you know the needs of the children, you know their interests, you also know what motivates them and what is their intention, what is their purpose. It is really great if you know your students well, because it will guide you when you craft it. It would be your basis to decide what type of activities you will use or you will conduct, this and that. And then familiarity with different strategies, it's also very important. Like, what are some of the strategies that you know, and what are those that you are going to follow or use? The materials, you have to know the materials, the appropriate materials that you will use. And of course, another important thing that you have to know before you make a lesson plan is how you have to understand objectives. You have to understand that there is a need for you to have a cognitive, an affective, and a psychomotor objective. So that would be all for the lesson planning this time. I will stop sharing my screen. Okay. So I hope, class, you know a thing or two for my discussion on lesson planning. Next video lecture, I am going to talk about the different approaches. So thank you very much, class, for watching this video. I hope you have a deeper understanding now about lesson planning. And I am pretty sure you had an experience making a lesson plan, so it's not gonna be like a huge like a big deal, no? It's not your first time to know about lesson planning, but I hope through this lecture I was able to share something that is not something that you have not learned yet, or if probably you learned already all these things. So I hope you just kind of being reminded on the importance or what are the things that we have to consider when we create lesson plans. So thank you very much. Again, I hope you learned a thing or two. And I will see you on the next video lecture. The next video lecture would be some approaches on creating the lesson plan, specifically under the procedure. So bye for now. Bye, everyone. I'll see you on the next video lecture.